and welcome to a very quick overview of Lab 16. I don't think this lab requires a lot of explanation, and because you've already been tested on volcanoes, this is going to be somewhat of a review. I didn't have you do this lab last week because I wanted to make sure we got in the igneous rock lab. So I still think it's important, so I want to go through it real quickly. Now, all I'm showing you here is where you can download it and you can print it. I'm just going to go through some of the things that you might have questions about. So the first page or two are bits of information that help you understand how to answer some of the questions that are in here. And the first questions are in Activity 5.1. You are going to answer all questions that I've given you in this set of pages. I have removed some pages, so you just do everything that is there. Again, this should be a lot of review. When we get to Activity 5.2, the first question says to measure the slope of Mauna Loa's flank using a protractor. So you're probably thinking, well, I don't have a protractor, but you can have one, and I'm going to show you how. I went onto Google and I Googled free printable protractor, and I got a whole bunch of hits. So I just chose one and I printed it and then I cut it out. Okay, so it's just a piece of paper. If you have some nice stiffer paper to print on, it's better, but this works. All right, so you are going to have to cut it out. And there is a hole that I made with a tack right there. Not sure how well you can see that, but you do need to make that hole big enough so you can see through it. So you can use this to figure out your angles. And I'm going to show you how. Here's the actual page of this example, and they ask you to do this 3 different times. That's why I want to make sure you know how to do it. So for this one, they have a horizontal line that's dashed, and that represents the ground surface. And then they want to know this angle right here, which is a pretty small angle between these two things, right? So you can try to put your protractor on here, but if you do, you're going to have to draw the lines further out so they intersect with it. Another approach is what I did. I'll show you what I did. So I took a piece of paper, I drew a very nice straight line, this black line with a ruler, and then I put this black dot on it. And the black dot represents where the 2 lines meet that I want the angle from. So I then took the black dot and I put it right where those 2 lines meet, right there. Now, if you take a single page and you hold it up to the window, you can see through it really easily, and you can put this over it. You can sketch the slope of the volcano. As long as the black line is parallel to the horizontal line that they put on there for you, then you can draw this angle. Okay. I then took a ruler and I extended it nice and straight across the page. Well, now what? Now I'm going to take my protractor and I'm going to turn this upside down just because it's going to be a little more logical. Okay. So the little pinhole in my protractor has to go on that circle. So the little pinhole goes on that circle, and then the black line has to line up through the hole with this line right here. This is 0 line, and the same one over here, this 0 line. When I do that, it looks like this. Okay, you see how the black line is lined up where I just pointed, and you have to trust me that my hole is on that black dot. Now I can see where that purple line comes out and crosses the protractor, and the angle that I'm going to read off here is about 7 degrees. Remember that the whole distance across a protractor is 180 degrees. So you have 2 angles that you could potentially measure. There's the 7-degree one here, and then the other angle, which could be all the way from here to here, which you could also measure, would be 180 minus 7, or 173. Okay, so if you get a number that's greater than 90, then you want to take the smaller number for the angle when you compare the 3 different volcanoes. I hope that helped and didn't confuse you more. So again, this is for the first question on activity 5.2. There's the horizontal, there's the slope, and I just measured it at about 7 degrees. You could make sure that I am accurate. As we go down and look at cinder cones, they ask you to use a protractor and do the same thing with SP crater. And that's down here. There's a horizontal line right here, and then it's this slope. So what you can see is if you do this angle, it's going to be greater than 90. So what you really want is the angle between here and the horizontal. But you can calculate this one, measure it with the protractor, and then take 180 and subtract that angle. So you want an angle less than 90. And then it asks you to do this again. It actually asks you to do 2 more but they're together. I said 3 total earlier, but there's 4 angles. So this is activity 5.4. Measure the slope near the top of Mount Hood along the red line with the protractor, and then measure the slope at the base of Mount Hood. So here's a horizontal. They've got this red line here, and then they've got this line down here. So there's a bit of a difference, you'll see. So hopefully that won't be too confusing. If you are having a hard time, just stop by my office hours, of course. So that's it. You're going to answer these questions about hazards. And like I said, I hope it's going to be mostly review. And this is a lab manual that I'm considering for my classes in the future. So I'd be curious to see what you think about this more professional type of lab manual. It asks a lot more questions than the ones I ask, but this one doesn't really involve an activity except for the measuring with the protractor. It's really about understanding different types of volcanoes. I hope that helps you out. Good luck with the lab.